Hey, Mom. I'm so
Hello.
glad we're in this conversation. Let's just jump right in. You have three children. I'm one of them.
Yes, I'm glad. I'm happy.
You're good on most days. Uh,
Yes.
tell me about your birth experiences.
Yeah. That's such a wonderful question because I was always so happy to be pregnant. I think all three were really very different. Um, so I felt well, I felt good, but I think there's things that you don't think about before. First of all, I gained a lot of weight and I had swelling. And then during the pregnancy, and with my last pregnancy, I had pre-eclampsia and an emergency C-section. And so, being a parent, being pregnant and giving birth can often be so challenging. And I feel like while it can be a joy, um, there are things and times when you just have to have the right support, the right medical support, the right doctors. With my last pregnancy, um, my doctor, when she realized that I was having trouble with my blood pressure, she was so on it.
Mhm.
She was just with me every step of the way. You need to be on bed rest. Let's check your urine regularly. So you have to have the right medical support
Yeah.
because how do you know what to do? Um, I think um, that I love being a mom, and I love having having three daughters. But I think that we have to think more about the pregnancy and the actual birth and the kinds of supports that women really need. So for me, I was very grateful and to for having that um, physician um, who called the. I mean, at one point she said, I'm going to call the question on this. This baby is going to be better outside than inside of you. So we're going to do an emergency C-section, and we're going to do it in the morning. You don't have to worry about anything. It's going to be just fine. And it was. But really, without that, I mean, I can't imagine what could have happened.
Yeah. So there's the pregnancy and then there's the birth, but then there's that first year. And I don't think people say enough about that postpartum period, like that year of bringing in a new life. I don't know if you have memories from those first years.
Well, it was a really long time ago.
Not
But I mean, I'm trying to think.
that long, Mom.
Oh, but I do want to say this. So, um, I um grew up in a family where the the older women in the family really supported the younger women. And I have to honestly say that with each of my pregnancies, if I hadn't had my mom, my mother-in-law, um, sisters and sister-in-laws to help me, it would have been much harder. So you do have this hormone imbalance that causes, um, you to have fluctuations in your moods, and you are you are so tired.
Yeah.
You're just exhausted because you're not getting enough sleep. And in those olden days, I think about that all the time. Now, new dads, they kind of trade off. They'll get up one night, they'll do one feeding, they'll do, but back then, no, the mom was kind of on her own. And I do remember being exhausted. And I remember, Fatima, when you had your first baby, that when I came, I I offered to take the night feedings so
Yeah.
that you and Matt could get a good night's sleep. And I remembered that. So you're exhausted, you feel, and everybody expects you to be just wonderful. So you need help, you need support.
You're
That
so exhausted, you don't even know you're exhausted.
that's really true. You're just tired. And I think you need someone to say, I know you're tired. It's okay. You are tired. Nobody gets 3 hours of sleep at a time and it's not tired.
Yeah.
That it's just not realistic. So anyway, I think that we're not paying enough attention to what happens to new moms during that first year.
Yeah.
And um, my life's work has been with trying to help families that don't have that kind of support. And you can see the difference when they do have it, when
Yeah.
there is someone that comes and takes over. If
Yeah.
you've got a crying baby who has colic, or I mean, that first year it can be really hard. It's joyous. You have this wonderful child, you're so happy, but it can be really hard. And in our culture, we should just acknowledge that.
Yeah. I don't know why we don't tell that story. It's like this private hidden story that maybe is whispered to you, like right before you give birth. Oh, it's going to be really hard.
Right.
We should acknowledge it and build it in. Is there anything that you think, man, I wish I had known beyond the fact that it was going to be hard?
Um, so so interesting. Um, I I said this once to a friend who'd had a C-section, and I said this to her afterwards, but I said, I wish that people had said to me, you're going to be in an awful lot of pain. You are just not going to be able to do a lot of stuff. And even the doctor didn't say how much pain, like like you can't stand up. And,
Yeah.
you know,
That's pain. Yeah, I think people make it seem like it's invisible
right,
pain, but it's actually real life pain.
it is. No, it really is. So I wished I'd known that. And I I do think that we have to be more authentic and honest with the birth process, and how it for some women maybe it is really easy, and they have a short labor, they deliver, and that within a few days they um, uh, are back to themselves. I applaud that, but that is not the case for everyone, and we ought to talk more about it. what
Yeah.
what they can what you can expect. That there's so much joy in giving birth. I really was. It's probably one of the things I could say was the happiest time of my life. That I just enjoyed it and enjoyed my children so much. Um, but I think we should put it in the right context so you don't feel guilty if you feel bad or tired, or if you didn't get up and go to work the next day. I mean, the expectations have to be realistic.
Yeah, every time I hear a story about someone who gave birth and is back at work or back at school within a week or two, I think about how I could barely function, like I could barely have a conversation. I was so tired and in so much pain, recovering from major surgery. Is it?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. I know. I think that so women don't have to be superheroes. They really don't have to solve all the problems of the world and be this kind of expert in giving birth and parenting and all that. This is all difficult and hard. And if we acknowledge that and support it, and if we, you know, can let go of those really high expectations and say, it's hard to be a mom. And I remember I had this one incident after I had my youngest daughter, Melanie. So I was going to this event with your dad, and I somehow was like losing my brain. She was a little baby. I had two other children, and I was forgetting everything. So I left, we were in a taxi, and I left my purse in the taxi. And I didn't even realize I didn't have it until much later. And I was like, where's my purse? What? So, I mean, it was all of the things that were going on. You just, you lose your mind, your brain, and it's okay. It's kind of like a fog, and it's really okay. And you should acknowledge it. I was, I didn't want to tell anybody I had lost my purse. I had to tell your father that didn't have my purse. He was like, what? But it's just an example, like your body changes, your hormones, your brain, everything does.
Yeah, that brain fog. It reminds me of when I was pregnant with um our younger one, and I had a 3-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one day where I drove to work, which was unusual for me. And then I left work and got on the metro and went home and realized when I got home that not only was the car at home, but my keys were at a car at work. My keys were also at work because I had given the keys to the parking attendant and I had no way to get inside of my building. And I just started like the fog was very real even at the end of my pregnancy. I remember that. So I have one more question for you, Mom, and for those who don't know you, you have definitely devoted your life to children and families and trying to figure out how they can thrive. And so if you had a magic wand or all the levers you have known how to pull over the decades to create a world that is um, supportive of maternal health, what would you want to see in that future?
So that is a really good question, because I could just start with a really long list. But what I'm learning is that, particularly for young women, women of color, and women with few economic resources, that they need support. And so we actually need birthing centers in our communities where young women have access to the kind of support that they need to help them get through the pregnancy, no matter what kind of pregnancy it is, and that first year of um, of parenting. And there are some programs that are starting to push on that, birth centers, the birthing project, because what they realize is that there are better outcomes for our children and the parents. And in a world that was just and fair, these would be things that would just already be available, that people would recognize we need to have a place for women to go where they can get health care and access to quality health care during the pregnancy and afterwards. And that there would be supportive mentors and other women who could tell them stories, things that, what do you do when your baby has hiccups? I still don't know the answer to that, but it is a reality. And it just being able to talk to someone so you don't feel like you're being a bad mom. And in a perfect world, these things would be available across the board with equity and quality, fairness. And so that's what I would wish for. Whenever I have a chance, and people say, well, how would you pay for that? I don't know, you pay for a lot of stuff. So you'd have to figure out how to pay. We have to make it a priority that our families are important, our children, and really thinking about how important is maternal health, maternal and infant health. So that would be what I would recommend and suggest.
I endorse it. I love it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mom, for doing this.